Hello, Junior League of Charlotte. I am so excited to be on this call with you or this vlog with you today. I have two wonderful volunteer leaders that have joined us today to talk with us about the LBDI campaign that's coming up for us, Little Black Dress Initiative. I'm joined by Jennifer Sarbach. She is our current chair of LBDI. And I'm also joined by Zena Martin, who has been so gracious to be with us today. And she is one of the founders of LBDI from the Junior League of London. And so we are so grateful to have her here as a part of this conversation to share with us today. So I'll kick it over to you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Zena, thank you so much for being here and joining us. We're so grateful for you volunteering your time and for your insight and your guidance as we prepare to kick off our own campaign. You've done so many impactful things as a member of the League. Can you tell our members a little bit about yourself and share some of your most memorable experiences in the organization?
Sure. Well, thank you so much to both of you for inviting me. I'm truly honored to be a part of your campaign kickoff this year. So a little bit about my story. I have actually been a League member for, I believe, 18 years, which is stunning to me. Wow. And I started out, I became active in the Junior League of London. And really, you know, I've come from a very philanthropic family. So we've always been volunteers. And I had actually been looking for a good, consistent volunteer opportunity in London and hadn't really found anything. And then my sister-in-law joined the Atlanta League and said, did you know that there is actually a league in London? And so that was just really quite exciting. I knew about the Junior League. And so the rest is history in terms of my being involved. And so I'm still very involved in the Junior League. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more. And I also, you know, volunteer for some other charities, serve on boards. I am a marketing communications, you know, executive, although I'm kind of semi-retired now and I have a skincare company so I'm doing a lot of that. And so I stay super busy doing all kinds of things. I also owned a cookie company while I lived in London. And now I just kind of bake for my friends. And memorable experiences with the Junior League. I think probably two stand out. One is having served on the AJLI board and chairing the DEI committee for the 3 years of my term. That was really amazing. It was not, when I became chair, I think it was the second year of the DEI committee actually existing for the AJLI board. And I was really honored to kind of, you know, take over the helm, if you will, and really help to move it forward with a great committee, committed board, you know, and having presidents and VPs and all of that really want to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. And now, of course, we have Patsy Doerr, the chief executive, who is very committed to it. So it's amazing to see where we started and where we are now with the advisory panel. And, you know, from what I can see, they're just doing great. So that's one that really stands out for me. And I think the other, which was such an incredible honor, was to be the PE and president of Junior League of London. Just an amazing, amazing experience that I will never forget.
That's wonderful. And as a follow-up to that, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like in terms of developing your vision for and founding LBDI?
Sure. So, you know, very much a group effort. I want to absolutely say that, you know, this is Junior League of London. Like many leagues, we were looking to diversify our fundraising. You know, our biggest fundraiser, just because of things that have been happening in the economy, all kinds of things, it was just not going to get us the same, you know, earn us the same funds that we were, you know, could rely upon, where that fundraiser used to earn us £100,000 in 2 days. I mean, it'd take a year to plan. So we needed to diversify. And what's so amazing about the Little Black Dress Initiative is that it's kind of low cost, but high awareness. You know, you don't have like a huge venue hire, you know, all of those types of things where you're thinking, we have to break even and then also, you know, earn a surplus so that we can fund our programs, et cetera. So, and the idea was to, when it launched in 2014, it was during London Fashion Week. And that is where the tagline, "Make Poverty Unfashionable," came from. And so, because, I mean, and London Fashion Week and all the fashion weeks, super cool. But when you look at the juxtaposition and really trying to highlight the fact that there are so many people who are living in challenged communities, many of which we serve in the Junior League, that do not have the same access to even a wardrobe. A full wardrobe, and that can really impede your ability. So it can diminish your self-confidence, whether it's to go to school, to just be out and about, and it can limit your access to employment opportunities. And that is really where this came from. Wearing the same black dress for 5 days to highlight those challenges, and I'm sure we'll get into more of all of that.
Wow, thank you. That I didn't know that was the background behind the tagline. That's powerful. Thank you for that. So another question that we'd like to ask you. So the LBDI, or Little Black Dress Initiative, is, as you've stated, more than a fundraiser. It is an awareness campaign, a powerful awareness campaign. What inspired the Junior League of London to start this campaign? And can you talk a little bit about that awareness aspect?
Yes, so I think for the awareness, especially, thinking about the fact that we wanted to highlight, as I mentioned, not only our community partners, because our focus area really was around, and probably still is, and I say our because I'm still so connected to Junior League of London, and I'm interleague with them. I am a dual citizen as well, so I recently renewed my British driver's license. Why, I do not know. I do not have a car there anymore. But I'm not giving up anything. My passport, none of it. I still have a bank account in the UK, all of that. So in terms of, so the focus was poverty. We wanted to highlight what our community partners were doing. And that really, around homelessness and around wardrobe. So one of the key community partners with the Little Black Dress Initiative in London is an organization called SmartWorks, which is very much like Dress for Success, right? So, and we also, because we had a lot of, whether they be male friends or partners or whatever, we also partnered with one of our other community partners, which is the male equivalent, called Suited and Booted. So they provide, interview suits for men and all of that. And so to be able to, London is, like many big cities, it's a very expensive city. It's very wealthy, but there are many challenged neighborhoods. And those are the communities where we are rolling up our sleeves, where we are working. And this was a new way to do it. There is, and there's nothing wrong with having that black tie fundraiser, nothing at all. But as you know, junior leaguers like to roll up our sleeves and like to be in it. And to, I think, what the word that really comes to mind for me, and probably with many junior leaguers around LBDI, is empathy, because you are, and we are, as we wear the dress, we are starting to really feel what it might be like to not have access to different wardrobe, or if you spill something as you're feeding your children or something, and normally we'd be like, oh, okay, I'm going to be late, but I just change my clothes, and keep it moving. And that is not always the case for many of the people whom we are trying to serve, trying to help, and to try and lift people up and out of perhaps their circumstances, so that they have a fighting chance to do great things in the world, and not having to worry about will I even be able to have something to wear for a job interview, is something that we wanted to help with and to strengthen some of our community partners who are trying to help. Because another thing is thinking about homelessness in a city like London, because I just actually in my church in London, the American International Church, we participated, and Junior League also volunteered with the soup kitchen there. And there was a winter kind of homeless program that was overnight. And what was really interesting about that, because of the cold months, what was really interesting about that is that honestly, I was kind of stunned by it, is that many of the people who would come and sleep there actually had jobs. They just couldn't make a living wage so that they could afford housing. And so these are the things that we try to highlight and to raise awareness, because people make assumptions about a lot of the people whom we are trying to help in Junior League.
Thank you. I love that.
Yes, I do. And I think I love the word empathy. And I love how you're able to really share that empathy and show it with others through the campaign and the awareness aspect. I mean, we're wearing our "Ask Me About My Dress" buttons. Yes. And it really does. We get asked the question, like, why are you wearing the dress? And it gives us a chance to really share about a lot of the things that are impacting students. And our current focus is school readiness and helping children be prepared in their best selves to learn. And it helps us share statistics and facts. How is this current pandemic impacting someone's ability to show up ready to learn at their best, feeling confident, and in so many other aspects to being ready to learn. But I love the term empathy, and it really does allow us to really shape the conversation. That's and right. I think it also allows, as you mentioned, like Black ties can be somewhat cost prohibitive, but it allows anyone to participate in this campaign. That's like right. Any amount matters. And
that's right. Absolutely. And, talking about the school readiness, yes, thinking about like Junior League of the Golden Isles, which just talking about because I've been involved with them as well, we had confidence closets, because for that very thing, for school readiness. So even, hygiene products, all of those things, just because that can make such a huge difference. So you can just focus on learning, and yes, the empathy. I think it also helps to be able to tell stories for people like, I had no idea. Yes, let me contribute $5 or let me help. And some of corporate partners, we talked about community partners. So like Junior League of London, I recall that we had a panel discussion with Suited and Booted and SmartWorks, but at Facebook's office in London. And, because they donated the space and we had the media there, and that was just wonderful. So, use your other partners, perhaps, or your connections that you may have, because they've got the money. But having the space, so they may not donate money to the campaign, and it's also a great way, because, many of our members are working outside the home, to get colleagues involved. If you haven't already done that, this is a great way to get, your team, whatever, to whether they want to wear the dress or donate to the clothing drive or get their friends involved or give them a button to wear, all of that. Really good.
Thank you.
Jennifer, back. I'd love to get some more insight into how specifically you fostered those relationships with those community partners. How did you, it sounds like you had a very obviously, it was so much in common with and such an overlapping mission with something like Suited and Booted. I'd love to know about how you built that relationship with SmartWorks, so that we can learn from your success with that and figure out how to tie into our community partners and empower them to join the advocacy campaign with us.
Yes. So I think, it definitely helps if you are already working with some of these partners and have done in-a-day shifts or volunteer shifts at them. So you're really seeing how the partners are making an impact in your community and how you can help make an impact, whether it is through the clothing drive. And, for instance, when I was president, we were so honored to have the then AJLI president, Carol Scott, come, and she came and did a really wonderful sustainer event with us at the Chelsea Flower Show. And then she volunteered with us at SmartWorks. And I mean, she was sorting clothes. It was really great. And, met the people who run it. And then she also was our keynote for our AGM. But, when you are, because again, we sometimes, I think, honestly, we as junior leaguers may take it for granted, the lives that we lead. And when you are going back to empathy, when you are able to donate, but able to see or even meet some of the, in this case, women at SmartWorks who are benefiting, and you hear their stories, and they come and they get dressed by the volunteers, ready for their interview. And then you hear that they got the job, And one of the things that I used to like going to do was to go and actually steam clothes that had come in as donations, and just be listening as the, I didn't want to get in the way, but just listening to the stories of the women who were coming in. And they came from all walks of life, in terms of some, honestly, had been incarcerated, and now they were out and they were trying to get a job. Some were just, had become unemployed and they're trying to feed their kids, all of the things. This is how you develop the empathy, is to really hear the stories, see the stories, become part of the story, speaking to the people who run the community programs, finding out how can you make the most impact with them. Because also, I think sometimes we as junior leaguers would be like, this is how we're going to help you, And so it's like, no, how about you tell us how we can best serve you, how we can best help you, how are we making an impact? I know that you're into, you've been doing this for a few years, so really showing, as you highlight the campaigns, showing how maybe you've made an impact with those community partners already, whether it's financially or with, with clothing drives. So I highly suggest, if you're not doing that, a clothing drive really kind of hits at home as well. And I will tell you that the panel discussions with community partners work very well. Whether you have people who come, if they feel comfortable enough, who are benefiting from some of the work that we're doing, as well as the people who are running your community partnerships. Really great. And if you can invite the media or just people who will be involved, it's very inspiring and moving as well.
These are really great ideas and suggestions to further our reach and our impact and our partnerships. Wanted to go a little further. I'm going to ask you about advocacy. So advocacy is really an important part of impacting community and creating change. So what advice or tips would you give the Junior League of Charlotte women who want to promote awareness or challenges resulting from lack of access, and want to drive for change in their communities?
Right. So it's so interesting that you talk about advocacy. Yesterday, I actually got to participate in what the Junior League of Atlanta calls Capitol Day, and it's an annual event. And there were about 30 of us, including the president, the current president of Junior League of Atlanta. And we went to the Georgia State Capitol. One of our sustainers is actually a state representative who has just been making all kinds of wonderful change in the community. And I hasten to add that this is a nonpartisan event, right? So, but we went, we got trained, looking at the sort of pillars of the what the Public Affairs Committee, Politics and Public Affairs Committee is focused on. And so that's everything from equity and education and health and aid and protection. And then we got trained on how to engage legislators. And then we broke up into small groups, and we were given one of the Senate bills that is literally right now being discussed, voted on, maybe it's come back to committee, given the facts. And then we went and we engaged with those senators and representatives and said, we're from the Junior League of Atlanta. We went to their offices. We're from the Junior League of Atlanta. These are our, I believe they call them stands, but I'll call them pillars, you know, where we are focused. And because for our focus is women and children and the access that they need to do well in life. And we want to specifically speak to you about this particular bill. Mm-hmm. And we would love to know, you know, where you stand on this or why has it come back to committee? And we would love to be able to help you get this passed, you know, so in our lovely Junior League way, but wow, is so powerful. So I guess it's my long-winded way of saying, though, that if you can access your local politicians and tie what their work is, you know, regardless of political party, to what you're trying to do. So school readiness, how can you do that? Are there people in Junior League of Charlotte who have access to some of those people or who are actual politicians, you know? Oh, yeah. That's really good because that's where the advocacy, you know, school boards, I mean, that is such a hot topic these days, but, you know, what can you be doing with your local school boards to really tie into what you're doing and also to support them and have speakers who may come from the school boards or your superintendent of schools or things like that. And then I think just from an awareness standpoint from your members, I mean, they're probably doing this because you've been doing this for a few years, but tell your personal story. So I mentioned that, like, you know, the baby spits up or your kid spills something on you, you know, and you're showing each day what your life is like as you're wearing the dress. And so how has that impacted your day? Because again, it goes to that empathy of this is what would happen to someone who doesn't have access to, you know, a big wardrobe. And, you know, often in many of our communities, there is a league member who is actually a broadcast journalist, or they get someone who is a broadcast journalist who will wear that dress. And, you know, she's got to still be wearing it and showing like what can happen in the, you know, paw prints from the dog, whatever.
All that.
Yeah, all of that. So I think, you know, the more that you can do that, again, going back to highlighting your community partners in a way that can really show the work that you have been doing, the work that you want to do in terms of advocacy, you know, should really, hopefully that will help you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah.
You know, you've talked about so many different things that you've learned over the course of, you know, your time working on the LBDI campaign, whether it be an increased degree of personal empathy, connection to the community, and kind of learning how you can affect advocacy and change. What do you think, if you had to boil it down to, what do you think is the critical number one thing that you personally learned as a result of your experience with this campaign?
That we as junior leaguers are incredibly blessed. Honestly, it is that we are in a position to be able to help, whatever that looks like as a member, because, you know, not everyone's going to wear the dress, but Jennifer, you know, before we started recording, we were talking about the fact that, you know, it's so wonderful that there are so many committees who are involved in helping make this campaign a success. So that is great that so many of us can be involved in lots of different ways. So boiling it down is that we are blessed. That's why we exist, to do things to, you know, transform or whatever word it is that you want to use, your community or our community. And that by wearing this same dress for 5 days, that it really helps the messaging in terms of what it is that we are trying to do. It just kind of boils it down in a way that people are like, oh, I didn't know, or wow, okay, I get it now. You know, because sometimes also that we're, you know, we all know that we're still fighting some myths about the junior league and, you know, that we're just ladies who lunch, and not that there's anything wrong with a good lunch, with your girlfriends, but it's, I think that's, for me, that's what it is.
I love that.
Love it. So there are leagues around the world, like the Junior League of Charlotte, that are participating in the Little Black Dress Initiative and have been, thanks to the Junior League of London. How does it feel? Like, what is it like to know that your organization or your league has had such a large scale impact around the globe and our footprint?
That is a great question. Honestly, it's kind of stunning. I mean, I remember around, year 2 when other leagues were saying, hey, what is this thing you're doing? Because of course, with social media, your friends would see, and you've met friends at conferences and things like that. What is this thing? And at that point, there had never been, a real plan to expand it beyond London. It was just, this is the fundraiser. It is such an honor, honestly, to be almost up there with kind of like a Kids in the Kitchen or something, to be at one of the global programs now and to have seen it grow. Like, I don't know if it still exists, but in the first few years, they were tracking a map showing where all the leagues, and it was amazing. And when you think about, the awareness that has been raised, the amount of money that has been raised, if we were to collectively, and it's possible that AJLI is actually keeping track of this, I just think that it is, honestly, it's just really cool, which I know isn't an incredibly eloquent word, but it is super cool. And working with AJLI to develop it to be this kind of a program. So for instance, to have the consistent supporting materials like the buttons and, and things like that. So it's a kind of plug and play or ready to go kind of kit, if you will, to be able to do this. Also, honestly, having AJLI do that was very helpful, because it was, as more and more leagues wanted to do, it was putting a fair amount of strain on the Junior League of London to try and help support. Of course, everybody wanted to help. But it is wonderful that now AJLI has helped to develop these materials and is there to support. And I'm just honored to be one of the ambassadors for this now global program within Junior League.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Zena.
So Zena, this year we celebrated our association's centennial. So we've been doing this for 100 years. And you spoke a lot at the beginning of our conversation about your experiences, being a dual member originally in London and now in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. I would love if you could talk a little bit more about your experience having served in multiple leagues and what, in addition to kind of the massive footprint of LBDI, even just outside of LBDI, what it's like being part of the Junior League on a global scale and what that's meant to you.
So yes, and actually in between London and Atlanta, as I mentioned, there's also Junior League of Savannah and Junior League of the Golden Isles, because when I repatriated to the US about just over 4 years ago, I became a member of, I transferred to the Junior League of Savannah. And at that same time, the Junior League of the Golden Isles, which is actually where I lived on St. Simon's Island, was forming and is now a full league. And so, and all 4 of those leagues are incredibly different and also really different sizes. So that's one, and then you add AJLI, because I was so incredibly honored to serve on the AJLI board for a 3-year term. And so I've had this incredible experience of getting, the kind of helicopter view and meeting all of these leagues and visiting them and supporting them, being on the, serving on the AJLI board, but also being a member of these different leagues in all kinds of aspects, so I've been the member who rolls up her sleeves and does whatever it is that we're doing. And I still try and do that. I've created my own my own role, I suppose, by calling myself an active sustainer. So I, like going to Capitol Day yesterday and all that. And I'm always really interested, but but what are we doing to volunteer? Because that was why I joined, right? And so, and yes, I have met some of my closest friends in life through Junior League. That has also been an incredible blessing. But to see, you know, to have been involved in a league like a newer league like Junior League of the Golden Isles that is, you know, quite frankly, very small right now. It is growing, which is great. And now being a member of Junior League of Atlanta that has almost 3,000 members, I mean, it's just the difference is incredible. And I've loved all of the experiences and how, you know, to see how the leagues are run. Obviously, there is some consistency because that's how they need to be, and also the focus areas, that's also really interesting. But you know, I think, but what is probably the most consistent is that we are this incredible group of passionate women who get things done, who really want to serve our communities, who are increasingly focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is important to me because that also in my corporate life is something I still do. I'm still a DEI consultant from time to time. And so I think that's super important. And then, you know, the international aspect, because honestly, there are a lot of leagues that to kind of forget or aren't really aware that there is a London league, that there are Canadian leagues, that there are Mexican leagues. And we need to always remember that because it just brings a great perspective. And also we don't want the leagues outside of the US to feel like outposts. So that, and that can happen. And also being an AGLI, we always like to help make sure that people understand that, you know, not everything translates, whether it's, you know, I like to tease or like to kid that I am fluent in American English and British English. And, you know, and so there are differences in the way that you spell things. And I remember when we were, you know, migrating to Digital Cheetah, there was an issue because of the way British people and Europeans write the dates, because the day is written first and then the month, and, you know, all those things can come up, but it makes you aware. And it's been such an incredible experience. I can't believe it's been almost 18 years. And I want to keep going. I wouldn't trade a day of it, even when it's been challenging. And whether it's LBDI or, you know, serving on the board of one, you know, in London, serving on the board, being honored to be Sustainer of the Year in 2 different leagues, Savannah and London. These are all things that just mean so much to me. And I hope that I have helped to make an impact wherever I've been a member. It certainly has made an impact on me. So.
You've certainly made an impact, for sure. And we are very grateful and appreciative. And you said a lot of things just now, you know, as you talk about your experience and your journey across several leagues. And it just, you know, just really highlights the value of being a part of such a large organization and the ability to be able to work with so many like-minded, but also diverse and different individuals is just really powerful. And so thank you for sharing all of that. The last question we have for you. So we're kicking off, as you know, our own LBDI campaign in just a few short weeks. And we would love to know if you have any parting words of inspiration for our league as we get ready for our campaign.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the first thing that I would want to say is that even though you are into year, whatever it might be, still be inspired by what it is that you're doing. You know, definitely, I know we had a little chat about, you know, highlighting the impact you've already made through the campaign. Make social media work for you. You have got those, you know, college friends, old colleagues, you know, many of us have lived in different places, or have friends who have moved elsewhere. So make that work for you. I mentioned it before, but involve your workplace. Even if you're, you know, working virtually now, there are ways. And don't let the fact that maybe you are working virtually, or do not work outside the home. I always like to use that phrase because I know that if you are a stay-at-home parent, you are still working hard, hard, hard. But you know, there are so many ways that you can still highlight the campaign, even if you're not getting out and about. And obviously with the pandemic, things have changed so much, but be creative in terms of how you are highlighting. I mentioned it, you know, tell your own stories, or tell your stories about the impact that, in this case, being a member of the Junior League of Charlotte, and the work that, you know, you as a member, you as somebody who is participating in the campaign, what that has meant to you and some of the people whom you've met, because I think that your friends and family will find that incredibly powerful. To the extent that you can use your networks, your connections to highlight the campaign in the media, whatever that looks like, you know, because there's so many presidents and things who've been on, you know, your local morning TV program, that kind of thing, or radio, whatever that might look like, that's really good. And if you're not already doing it, I mentioned it, a clothing drive is a really good way to get people involved and highlight what you're doing. And I'm sure you all know this, but it's always an excuse to, whether you have a friend who sells accessories, or you just, or wherever, and to sometimes even some of your community partners, if they have shops and things, accessorize, accessorize, accessorize. That's what I would say.
Have fun with it.
As always. And those are probably my tips, unless you have specific questions where I could maybe answer about further tips.
Oh no, those are really, really great tips for us. I love it. Be inspired, highlight our successes along this journey, make social media work for us, continue to share with our friends and our colleagues and our families, and new people too. Media, clothing drives, accessories. I think this is a really great list. What about you, Jennifer? Any extra additional questions for you?
I feel humbled and inspired. I think you've given us a great set of ideas to work with, and I think, you know, we can hopefully implement these and bring some of our own creativity to the table and make it a really successful and meaningful and powerful campaign this year.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
I love how you talk so much about making this a personal experience and sharing your story. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And hopefully we can piggyback off of your inspiring message and make it our own.
Well, it was my honor, and thank you so much for inviting me again.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Zena. Thank you, Jennifer, for your leadership as well. Junior League of Charlotte, you heard it here. You know, many hands make light work. We have a lot to do in our community, but together we can do this. And I'm so excited and honored to not only be on this call with these amazing ladies and leaders, but to be in this work with you too. And so more information to come. Jennifer and her team have got a great toolkit for us to utilize as we look ahead and to make this campaign a success. Thank you all for everything you do, change agents. Have a great one.